I'm Peter Reinhardt. We're on Pizza Talk, and we're with Anthony Falco, international pizza consultant. And Anthony's you're in Brooklyn right now, aren't you, Anthony?
Yeah, I'm in Williamsburg, Brooklyn.
Williamsburg. Of course, many of you already know Anthony if you've ever been to. Uh, well, where? Well, I just
Bunch of
blanked.
places.
Yeah, but where did I first meet you?
Probably Roberta's.
Roberta's, yes.
Hmm.
So that's where I know a lot of people know you from there because you were there for a few years. But a lot has happened both before and since the Roberta era. And so, Anthony, first, international pizza consultant. Can you explain to everybody who probably wants that title and job what it means and how you attained it?
Well, so when I was, thanks for having me. First of all, really appreciate it. It's always fun to talk about pizza, especially with legendary pizza men as yourself. And so yeah, I was at Roberta's for like almost 9 years, like 8 years and 10 months, off and on. It started as a part-time job. Um, Kind of turned into a career. I ended up buying a mobile pizza oven and kind of like running that as like a business. And then just helping with all things pizza. I mean, it grew into a bunch of different things: frozen pizza, kind of an offsite commissary, like food halls, mobile pizza ovens, catering. One of the things I did was pop-ups. And so we would go to a city and try and recreate that pizza. So we did those in the United States, music festivals, Fader Fort for South by Southwest in Austin was one of the first ones. I'm from Austin.
And did you have a mobile oven that you took with you to all of these places?
Sometimes we'd take the mobile ovens with us. Sometimes we'd locate ones there. Sometimes we'd take over a restaurant. I think, and this is all important into the story about like what I do today, is that, it was a lot of like, what's the opportunity? What are the goals? And then, what are the pieces that we need to make that happen, right? So it may be using someone's oven, renting an oven, maybe like doing something unorthodox that we hadn't done before, like in one case making frozen pizzas and shipping them to the location. So that really kind of gave me a very broad experience.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I left and I was kind of trying to figure out what to do, I had some job interviews. I had some people that wanted me to start a pizzeria. I didn't like the job interviews. I'm not a very good employee. I've basically been fired from every job I've ever had, even ones where I was like a part owner of the thing.
Why is that?
I feel like I'm a really good consultant because, like, as a consultant, you're paid to be there for a short amount of time and kind of be brutally honest and like, really kind of break down everyone's strengths and weaknesses and just like very quickly kind of like, there's no time for sugarcoating things. It's like, we got to get this thing going.
The more brutal you are, the more they pay you.
Yeah, sure. I mean, and like, it's a results-based business. And so like, I kind of like feel lucky to be involved, to have found this accidentally, because I'd never really had much of a filter when it came to authority or bosses. I kind of just like, there's something that I see and I think it, and then I say it. So, I think that's not always appreciated by people when you're working for them.
Unless you charge them a lot of money, then they really appreciate whatever it is you have to say.
Even if you make them a lot of money, man, sometimes people's egos just get in the way. But yeah, so like, I don't know. I feel like what were we talking about? Me being
I
an
don't know how
asshole. Let's see.
we went off from why you weren't a good employee to how you became a consultant.
Yeah. So, but I was doing these pop-ups a lot, and I started doing them with Roberta's internationally. We did one in Toronto, and we did one in Brazil. And, I think that was a good example of where that attitude can really take you places, later at the time that you don't think about. And that's like, we were doing a pop-up there, and they were kind of like, the Brazilian kind of attitude was like, well, you guys are the talent, so you just hang out, and we're going to have these guys prep everything for you and make it right. And so I was like, okay, well, let me go look and see what the work is like. And I was like, can't prep it like this. And I was just like all over them, and they were like, bro, relax. And I'm like, no, like, this is our name is on this, like, this has got to be perfect. And so, I was like, this starter's messed up, this is that. And I just was like really kind of, I don't know, like, I was really trying to make it as good as it possibly could be. It doesn't matter who's watching or if no one's watching. It's got to be, it's got my name on it. I want it to be great.
That's
And so
exactly,
that was it.
scary words for any cooking talent. When somebody says, "I'll take care of your mise en place and I'll do your prep," those are frightening words sometimes.
No, never. Not. I have never in my entire life done a pop up where someone else made my dough
Yeah,
or prepped my mise. I mean, outside of being in the kitchen with them and delegating and watching them like a chef, like, but never like ahead of time having them prep my stuff for me. That's the whole point of it, is to learn and to use different ingredients and to use in a different environment and kind of challenge yourself. So, we're down there, and I guess I made an impression on these guys, because then, when, I was looking for a job, and I kind of just was like trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life after, I had dedicated my life to, Roberta's for a very long time. I didn't really, I mean, I have Roberta's tattoos. I didn't think it was like a thing that was going to end, but hey, stuff happens.
things come to
But yeah, so they called me, and they were like, we've got a new project. It's going to be, we know you have experience with fast casual. We have no experience with fast casual. We want to do something that's like kind of a hybrid of Brazilian and New York and Neapolitan style pizza. We're using these new high temperature electric ovens. They have 40 something restaurants. They have 9 pizzerias. They are not, amateurs, but they had something very specific that they wanted out of me too. And the other thing is my design. So I did a lot of illustration and design work.
yeah.
And so it really, my personality is very much included in that project. So they flew me down there, and we tested pizza. And then like 6 months later, less than 6 months later, the place was open. Like, we did the whole menu testing. We did a pop-up, and then I flew down like 3 times, and then, it was open, and it was a massive success. And there's now 7 locations.
And this is all across the countryside.
No, this is just in Sao Paulo.
Really? Wow.
That's
Like your first client in a sense, then, huh?
That was my first client, and it was international. So then I called myself an international pizza consultant.
That's good marketing.
That's it. And that's it. It's true.
I know.
But because of the fact that they were so on the ball, their marketing team is so good. The design team was so good. The culinary team was so good. I got this guy, Paul Cho. He's the chef. He actually staged with me in Roberta's back in the day. And he followed me on Instagram. He saw I was in Sao Paulo. He's like, what are you doing in Sao Paulo? I'm like, I'm working on a project. He's like, I want to be involved. I'm in between things right now. And so he became the chef. So super, super talented chef. Incredible team of management, just super professional restaurant operators. So they opened the place, and they just knocked it out of the park. And so from the time that, we started the project to that was like only a few months. And so it's this incredible thing on my resume right away.
Yeah.
because some of these consulting jobs take 2 years, you know?
Right.
So I would have had to get a job or fizzled out or something if that hadn't been the case. But because they were so good at what they did, that we were able to have this kind of like incredible brand as a showcase for me and my skills. And it just took off from there. I mean, pretty soon, then right after that, I signed a contract for Charleston and then Toronto, and then I'm
Well,
just all over the place.
first, before we leave Sao Paulo, what's the name of that restaurant group down there, or the name of the restaurants?
That's called Bras Electrica.
Bras Electrica.
Yeah, so Sao Paulo calls itself the pizza capital of the world.
And I've gotten emails basically emails from people from down there say, when are you coming down here? I've never been there, but I've heard that everyone says, we've got pizza everywhere. We love our pizza.
I mean, it's one of the most Italian cities in the world. It's a city of 20 something million people, and 30 to 40% are descended from Italians. There's, the oldest pizza place that I went to is almost 100 years old. There's pizzerias on every corner. I think New York City is the only place that has more pizzerias in sheer number, not on a per capita basis, but a volume basis. And it's a pizza crazy city, and it's
What language did you speak when you were there? English, or can you speak Portuguese or Italian, or what was it that you communicated with them through?
English.
So
Yeah,
everybody down there.
everyone in the world speaks English pretty much. I mean, I've been trying to learn Portuguese, and it's and Italian and Spanish all at the same time. So those are the kind of the three languages that I operate a lot in South America. So Portuguese and Spanish, and then sometimes I'll be in a place where the staff is trained in Italy. So like I was in Thailand, and the guy's like, well, this cook, he only speaks Thai and Italian. Do you speak Italian? So like, no, but I'm trying to learn.
Yeah.
When it comes to talking about pizza, I know a lot of the words in all those languages to kind of
Right. You can talk pizza.
move around the kitchen.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so when you were consulting with this first group, this breakthrough company for you, in a sense,
Yeah.
what service did you provide for them? I know a lot of people don't know this, but you already had a background as an illustrator, as an artist. So you had design skills and things that were not related to pizza at all until you brought them, kind of merged them with your pizza skills. But in addition to that, what did you do with them in terms of their pizza? What did you do? Something that a particular skill set or knowledge set that you brought them that they didn't know about?
Yeah, I mean, for the main knowledge set was fast casual and designing a kitchen and a layout for that. So a lot of what I do is kitchen design in the very beginning,
Oh, right.
and menu design and kitchen design are have to work simultaneously, because you can't cook a menu with equipment you don't have. I designed this custom double-sided pizza deck,
Oh,
which was something that I had developed when I had my mobile pizza operation. Um, so it's the skill set of design and like workflow, and like that I feel like that was the mobile pizza and the pop-ups really prepped me for that,
yeah.
because you would go into a place and they would be like, here's your booth, and it's like, okay, we have to figure out, where's the oven going to go, where's the table going to go, where's the service going to go, what's the ticketing system, and so like, how is the line flow going to work, and then you're doing 2,500 pizzas a day, and so you're running a crew of 15, 20 people, and then a logistic system to bring that, the mise en place from the commissary to the island or whatever it is you're doing. So like that kind of problem solving skill set was really the thing that
So
I think like
it's not just dough formulation. A lot of people think, oh, you're fixing their doughs for them or whatever. It's way beyond that. You're doing really full service. You're giving them front of the house, back of the house, flow,
yeah,
throughput, everything.
and then systems, so that I mean, one of the things when I in my previous job when was scaled, like we scaled from like there originally started with one room, and the mixer was just in the pizza kitchen under the counter, you know, and then you know, you make pizza dough in the morning, and then you make pizza during the day and night, and then that moved to, you know, a commissary kitchen with a refrigerated truck delivering, you know, dough, and so like that really is and then so what you learn about your own dough, the more you try to recreate it in different situations. I think like you could be really great at making pizza in one environment, and you may not, and you may, that dough may be perfect for you in your environment, but you may not even know how your dough works because because the environment is such a factor, you know. And so
Yeah.
to really know how it works, I didn't really get an understanding of it, at least me, and I still don't understand exactly how every dough works. um, and it was by trying to recreate the same thing in different environments, different countries, different places, different, using different ingredients.
Yeah. So
And
you
then
had
now I'm
to be
trying
able
to
to
do
adapt.
something different everywhere, you know.
Yeah, because all that pre-training of you running, being an itinerant pizza guy, going to festivals and this, that taught you adaptability, if nothing else. And that seems like a huge
100%.
skill to be able to bring with you into the consulting realm. So that's kind of
100%. Yeah. Adaptability, problem solving, um, you know, and then marketing. Cause like you do these pop ups and you do these festivals, and I would make videos and I would do Instagram posts and flyers. And like, you know, in my previous life before Pizza Guy, I was a bartender, and like, you know, in New York, you don't just open the bar and hope people show up. Like you have to make a party happen. You have to like kind of create an atmosphere. You have to make sure the right people are coming and create a buzz. And I think like, you know, for better or worse, that's like that's one of the things that I'm really good at, you know, and is I create a lot of, I can create buzz.
you can create buzz. That's why you weren't a great employee, but a great but a great consultant, because you
So
took that.
many, so many reasons I was a bad employee.
Well, when you were doing this project in Sao Paulo, were you doing natural leavening or commercial yeast leavening then?
So every single one of my pizzas that I've consulted on is always either a hybrid or 100% naturally leavened. So it's always a portion of sourdough with yeast or just all sourdough. So this one is a hybrid. It's a combination of, you know, sourdough starter and then a small portion of fresh yeast.
That's one of your signature identifiers, I think, as a consultant, is that you become a voice for natural leavening, across the world, teaching people that, kind of going back in a sense to the original way that doughs were made, but at the same time making them popular, and taking maybe the fear out of doing natural starters. When did that start happening for you? When did you kind of get keen to that approach?
I mean, it was just one of the projects that I had when I was at Roberta's project that they gave me, is that they wanted that included, and so I grew a starter in my kitchen from a mail order kind of piece. You know, like I don't know if you've ever seen these like Ischia sourdough starters that you can
Oh yeah.
order from
Oh
like
sure.
Amazon.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's how I started it. And so I started that in my kitchen, and we incorporated that as and turned that into a hybrid dough. Um, and you know, so that was just something where to me, and there's the fact that there's any like controversy over sourdough and pizza is to me just completely insanity. But like, you know, the thing for me and why I do it is because I think it tastes better.
Yeah.
And I think it gives you more depth of flavor, even if you're also including commercial yeast for just gas production and
Yeah.
convenience.
Yeah.
Um, and since I think it tastes better, that's my opinion, and so I literally cannot be wrong about that. So
Right.
you know,
And
whether it's healthier or more digestible, I really try and steer clear of that kind of stuff because I'm not a scientist. I don't know. And no one knows what's healthy for you. Like, you know, you when we were a kid, the things that they said were healthy were like, you know, granola and like, you know, all this stuff that's like, oh, now that's sugar and carbs, and that's what
Right,
really kills you.
right,
And
right.
it's like, just eat steak and eggs, and that's good for you.
It's always safest for us to focus on flavor first, and then let the scientists work out the other stuff. But this is a good time for you in a sense because the whole pizza world is waking up to the joys of natural fermentation and leavening, and and to be one of the guys that can teach people how to do it is being in the right place at the right time. I'd like to continue along this line when we come back for our part two, because we're coming to the end of this segment with Anthony Falco, international pizza consultant, who is going to, I think you got a sourdough starter, your own little starter there that you're going to show us in the next episode, right?
Yeah, I have two different ones that I keep here, and I think they're a good way to talk about kind of like the different attitudes and different you know, kind of functionality, how people use them. And I have these two different ones I think are a very good example of what you can do with sourdough.
Beautiful. So we're going to come back with Anthony Falco in our next episode. Thank you all for being with us this round. Part two, Anthony Falco is coming up tomorrow. Join us then. Thanks, Anthony. We'll see you at the next episode.
All right, thanks.
We're with Anthony Falco, international pizza consultant, who in our last segment kind of gave us a ramp up to his journey through a lot of itinerant pizza making around the country, mobile pizzas, a long stint at Roberta's, but pop-ups, everything. He's done everything that I think for me, the big takeaway in our last segment was the idea of adaptability and how that skill set, plus your other natural skills of design and understanding kitchen flow and everything, plus your dough style and your skills as a dough maker, kind of all converged and gave you a whole package that you could present. Took you to Brazil, but then where did it take you after you got that first one that established your international cred?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that first year it was kind of you know, it was just trying to make it happen, just hustle. I was also doing some other kind of less glamorous work, like I was, you know, making cheesesteaks at a music festival in like Jacksonville, Florida. Like
Cheesesteaks
it's horrible work.
are really. I love cheesesteaks, so that's not less glamorous to me. That's like essential food.
Yeah. And you know, just designing t-shirts and kind of just a little bit of everything that I do to just hustle to not get a real job, just desperately trying to not ever have a real job in my life. And so, but then I kind of, in that first, to establish myself, and I think this is a good lesson for people who are interested in getting into international pizza consulting, is, you know, I had jobs that I was doing, and you got to take the jobs, you know, those are great. But in between the jobs, I was doing pop-ups, and the pop-ups were a way for me to kind of go to a new city, you know, like get a little press, get a little buzz, have a party, and kind of just get the word out there for what I do. And for me, I started doing the pop-ups because I had a client that I had signed up after Brazil in Charleston, South Carolina, and they wanted a New Jersey style thin and crispy pizza, right? And I think a lot of people who follow my Instagram are familiar with my thin and crispy style of dough that I do. And, you know, so what I'm very, very comfortable with, like the Braz style of pizza is like this Neapolitan. It's like Neapolitan looking, high temperature, spotted, but not following any of the rules of Neapolitan pizza. You know, more of the kind of, I call it now Neapolitan-ish. You know, it's like, it's that kind of looks like that, but it's behind under the hood, it's nothing like Neapolitan pizza.
It's its own category, Neapolitan-ish. I like it.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm trying to like kind of always incorporate local flours and, you know, things like that. So that every dough I've done as a consultant is different from every other one. But so the thin and crispy, I started testing it at home, and then, and I didn't have a lot of experience with that style of pizza. So, you know, testing at home is one thing, but like I was like, I want to do some pop-ups so I can like bang out 100 in a row and see what happens. Like, because when you are working with like a deck oven, a gas deck oven, you set it to 625, the first pizza is going to look like something, but if you fill it with pizzas, they're going to start looking different. So I
Right.
really wanted to kind of to make sure that my client had the best possible product and that I didn't look like an idiot when I went in there when the finally opened. Was I wanted to do some pop-ups. So I did a pop-up in Toronto, I did a pop-up in London, um, and those kind of got my, these were all also just through friends of mine. And a lot of people wanted to kind of, you know, leverage my history and the name of my former employer, and I was really trying to make my own name. But at some point you spend 8 years with a world famous pizza brand, and people are just, whether you like it or not, people are going to associate with you with those things. So
Plus, you contributed to that brand as well, so it's not like anything to run from.
yeah, I
You're in
mean,
a
a
great,
lot of
yeah,
people contributed to that brand though, I mean, and like, yeah, I did a lot of different things. But yeah, I mean, it's just like anything, there's the press is always trying to kind of create this mythology of a single person who's a genius who creates something. But in my experience, that's rarely the case. It's always a kind of, you're, even if you are, let's just say you're by yourself and you're hand mixing all your doughs and you're making 40 pizzas a day by yourself,
yeah.
there's still the producers, there's still the flour, millers, there's still the cheese makers. No one is ever doing it alone. So I'm trying to make my own name out there by doing these pop-ups and stuff. And it took me to these London, Toronto, um, and then Bogota, Colombia, Panama, Charleston, South Carolina, Coralville, Iowa, Altoona, Pennsylvania, Bangkok, Thailand, Lisbon, Portugal. I went to Japan. While I was in London, I met my Kuwaiti client who then flew me to Japan to do a research trip for the Tokyo style pizza that we ended up doing in Kuwait. You know, um, so yeah, and then
Pretty
now
cool.
currently,
It's like one thing leads to another, but you're flying all over the map, literally.
yeah, I mean, I haven't worked in Africa yet, and I'm hoping to do that. Talking to some people in Mozambique, so hopefully make that happen. I'm working on a project in India, which as soon as I can, before the coronavirus, I was going to Australia for the first time to make pizza, and then I was going to go to Mongolia and India. So Mongolia project is almost finished. The kitchen is designed and ready. We're using Pizza Master ovens there, and in India, the restaurant is very close to being finished, and we're going to be opening as soon as I can fly back to India. I'm going to go. Got a
This
pizza in the
this
oven.
this whole COVID era has really kind of wreaked havoc on people who rely on travel for their livelihood. Has this been a setback for you since, or have you been able to kind of continue to kind of like telecommute with them on some of the work?
Well, so like the projects that are under construction, I mean, 90% of what I do is remote anyway. So, like, I have a project in the south coast of England, and we signed up right before this, and the place hasn't even broke ground on construction yet. So, we just kind of, it hasn't stopped us at all. We're going forward on kitchen design, menu design, sourcing, ingredients, all that kind of stuff is just moving forward like normal. The places that were about to open, Mongolia and India, those had to stop. And then there was definitely a drought of not signing up new clients, and and then I was going to go to the Pizza Expo, and I was going to Australia, and that was a lot of income for me that was lost. And then I'm not a restaurant, and I'm not an employee, so I don't qualify for unemployment. I don't really qualify for PPP, so I
You're on your
basically was just fucked.
Yeah, yeah, totally. You're, you know, have to be totally self-reliant, resilient. Like a restaurant operator, you've got to find ways to work around it and pivot. But
Yeah, and I've been helping a lot of my clients kind of navigate, with my background in frozen pizza, like helping them kind of, you know, convert their, spaces into a frozen pizza production. Um, and then just the first thing I did though, that first kind of really dark, scary week, you know, after kind of securing the home front and making sure we had enough like kind of food and supplies, I started to kind of release the doughs recipes of my forthcoming cookbook, and I have 4 pizza dough styles. And
Ah,
I started just doing those recipes on Instagram in my story highlights, and allowing people to, because I knew people were going to be making pizza at home. So I just was like, well, I don't know if my book publisher is going to like this, but I'm just going to throw these dough recipes out there and let people play with them. And they've really kind of taken off.
how
You'll
far
check on
along
my
is your
pizza.
book? Yeah, while Anthony's checking on his pizza, I wanted to thank all of you who are bearing with us. I know there must be a lot of traffic out there in Zoom world because we're getting some choppy feed, but we're going to hang in there with Anthony. And we're going to actually have a third segment with Anthony. He's getting ready to show us his dough and to make a pizza for us. So we're going to come back to all that in part 3, but we're going to continue in a second when he returns from his oven to kind of follow up on this. Oh, so what do you got there? Is that
Ah,
a parbit?
this is the butter crust pan pizza.
Butter
So
crust.
that's one of my recipes.
A butter crust pan pizza. Okay. So can you just describe or define what a butter crust pizza dough is?
It's Pizza Hut 1992.
No kidding. And it's made with butter. There's butter in the dough, or is it just butter in the pan,
Yeah,
or what?
there's butter in the dough. There's butter in the pan. It's a combination of like high protein flour and then whole wheat that I mill here with my mill, sourdough and commercial yeast. And then,
Wow.
I make like a kind of a cooked American style sauce, and I do a combination of fresh mozzarella and aged mozzarella, parm, oregano. And it's like, it is like going in a time machine and getting Pizza Hut pizza.
Well, people are hungry for nostalgia as well as for food. In fact, while Anthony's getting all of his pieces together for making some more pizza for us, what we're going to wrap this segment up. I just want to ask Anthony one more question when he comes back, and
I'm right here.
we're going to take a break. We're going to have a third episode with Anthony Falco, international pizza consultant, here on Pizza Talk. And Anthony, here's my question for you. If you can hear me back there, you dropped in the middle of all this the big bombshell that you've got a book coming out, and I'm always interested in that aspect of and I try to encourage as many people that have the talent to write to do writing. And there's the pizza. Okay, that's actually what the butter. That's the butter crust with mozzarella and what else?
So this is a tomato sauce. This is just a cheese. This is a plain cheese. So It's got fresh mozzarella that I stretch from Belgioso curd. It's some shredded Belgioso platinum, and then I've got some just real Parmigiano Reggiano, Sicilian oregano, and the tomato sauce is it's like 90% fresh whole peeled tomatoes, and then it's there's something I call flavor bomb, which is like I confit garlic tomato with a herb sachet in oil, in olive oil, and then I kind of blend that and then add that into the fresh tomato sauce to give it that cooked down kind of flavor. But yeah, it's like golden brown, delicious. It's it's a Pizza
When
Hut.
we come back for the next segment, we'll bite into that one. We'll talk about your starter and some other things. But first, before we go, do you have a date yet, a publishing date on the book, or how far along is the book?
The manuscript is submitted, and so I'm just waiting to hear back from the publisher, and we're gonna
probably
do
about a year away from publication, because usually by the
2021. I think is that's what we're shooting for next year.
For the editing process and the photos and everything else. So but the hard part's done. The manuscript's completed. So congratulations on that. I can't wait.
Thanks. Yeah.
We're going to talk more about this. We're going to talk about this when we come back. Join us in episode 3 with Anthony Falco. And thank you for being with us for this segment. I'm Peter Reinhardt. We'll see you in the next round with Anthony Falco.
All right. Hey, say hi.
We're going to
The
taste your
Instagram
pizza
Peter.
too. When we come back, we're tasting that pizza. We're back with Anthony Falco. This is part 3 of interesting conversation about what it means to be an international pizza consultant. This is Pizza Talk. I'm Peter Reiner. Anthony Falco coming to us from Brooklyn. We're getting a lot of interference on the Zoom airwaves, so the screen is freezing up from time to time. But we're gonna plow through it and see where we can go. I know you're eating your retro pizza crust, the butter crust that you say sort of brings you back to what was it, 1992 Pizza Hut. But why is this style coming back in popularity?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I think partly it's nostalgia is always important in all areas of cooking. I think there was a big wave of Neapolitan, and I think when you first have Neapolitan as an American, it's like the quality of ingredients, the simplicity, all that really, is very striking at first. And I think it's a natural cycle that then people kind of go, okay, well, that's amazing, but that's not what I grew up with. But now I'm really kind of concerned about the quality of ingredients. Like, what can I get something that's nostalgic, but then also isn't terrible? So like,
right.
I think Pizza Hut probably used to be better. I think they used to make their dough fresh in-house. I think they probably used to use better mozzarella. And so like, this is like the best memory. They definitely never used sourdough.
Well, that's it.
And they definitely never used freshly milled whole wheat.
Is there some whole wheat in your dough? What percentage of that dough is whole wheat flour?
20%.
20%. And so in a sense, I think what you're talking about is kind of going back into our flavor memory hall of fames, but then coming up with using what we now know about cooking and food science and everything else, and doing a better version in order to bring back the experience of that memory. Because if you go back and taste it back then the way it was, it might not be as good as we remember it to be. But now you want to bring the memory, the present, up to the memory. And you're doing that by adding some natural leavening, using sourdough starter in that dough, which I'm sure Pizza Hut never did.
Doubt it.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think it's, and for me, there's 4 different doughs that I'm going to cover in my cookbook. There's like Neapolitanish, which we talked about. I'm doing my thin and crispy. And then I'm doing this Pizza Hut kind of style butter crust pan pizza. And then I'm doing what I'm calling a Sicilian grandma. Because, that's the pizza I grew up with. Was my great grandmother from Sicily. She used to make, and she never called it pizza. And if you go to Brazil, square pizza is not pizza. That's focaccia. It's a totally different thing. Americans are the only people that really call that pizza. I think, there's the Roman al taglio style, but I think it's probably a similar situation where it's something they were making, and then people were like, oh, it's pizza. And they're like, sure, it's a euro. Like, what? Call it what you want. I'm trying to make money here, So
exactly. And that's kind of the cool thing about pizza is that, the category itself is so all encompassing, and different parts of the world have different names for it, but it's just in the end dough with something on it.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think it's like really, and then, dough with something on it, I think is pretty broad. I mean, more specifically, I think, tomato, and which is really interesting because you can actually trace that back to like very recent history. You can see dough with something on it has happened for 10,000 years. Exactly. But dough with tomato on it is 500 years or less, because tomatoes and wheat were separated until 1492. So there's an actual like traceable history with pizza, because you can have a pizza that doesn't have tomato, but you can't have a pizzeria that doesn't have tomato sauce.
Interesting. Now there's another little distinction within this growing definition that we have of what constitutes a pizza, which is the never-ending debate. Well, but
and I call my the one that's the most kind of like the earliest form of pizza for me is the Sicilian grandma. I call it Sicilian grandma because I have a Sicilian grandma, and that's who made it. But like, I also call it Sicilian grandma because I think at some level, you know, there's like journalists that want to kind of, you know, categorize everything. And it's like, to me, Sicilian, grandma, Detroit, they're all the same thing, basically.
Yeah,
And then, you know, everyone put their own personal spin on it, you know?
Yeah. So you're going to teach people in the book how to make a sourdough starter from scratch?
Yeah, so let me show you real quick my starters. So I have this one, and this is starter A. See, it's nice and fluffy there. This I feed with like King Arthur flour. I keep it in a plastic container. It started with a mail order, like Ischia starter. It's very much not precious, not hard. You know, you can get these ingredients anywhere. You don't need anything special. And then I have my super special starter. This is starter B. It's not been fed for a while, but it needs to be. It's yummy.
Like whole grain in there.
Yeah, so this is started from freshly milled whole grain, from scratch. That's it. No, there's no grapes or potatoes or yogurt or honey or anything like that. It was just really good, organic, freshly milled flour. And I've only ever fed it organic whole grains. And I've only ever kept it in a glass container, you know. And so the idea there is like, okay, I have these two starters, you know, because in partly just as an experiment of like starting a starter from scratch and keeping it and feeding it with just organic whole grains versus feeding it the other starter I feed with King Arthur Galahad or King Arthur all-purpose, which has some malt in there, malted barley,
right?
And which is just makes it, I feel, a little more foolproof. And I keep it in a plastic container because that's just what I have. So on one side you have a starter that's basically like, you know, like anyone can do this. It doesn't require anything special. It's not really, you know, it's not super precious. And then the other one is very precious, and it's only in glass containers. And honestly, in usage, there's not a difference. Not a huge difference. You know what I mean?
How about flavor?
Like, I feel like all sourdough starters, whether they're like a month old or 120 years old, it's all basically lacto-fermenting bacteria with some variety of wild yeast, you know?
Right.
So whether you feed it, how you feed it, it's really kind of up to you. And, you know, I think people should play around with all different kind of things. And, you know, I had some lady say, you know, oh, I can't believe you keep your starter in a plastic container. It's going to like leach the chemicals and change the flavor. And it's like, well, it's a number 5 plastic. So no, that's not true. And, you know, like, would you think that bakeries, you think Tartine is putting its starter in a giant glass container? Like, right. No one uses glass containers in a kitchen, you know? So it's kind of an exercise in just like, you know, like whatever, do it however you want to do it, right? Just do it.
Do a book with maybe a collaborative book with you and a few other sourdough, you know, sort of aficionados, and talk about the myths of sourdough. Maybe do some myth busting and clarify a lot of this sort of urban legend stuff.
I would love to do that. I would love to take all these cultures and bring them to like a lab and really figure out what's in there.
Well, that is happening. That is happening.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful series they really Zoomcast, but they're now on YouTube, put out by North Carolina State, called Fermentology. And if people just go to YouTube and go Fermentology, we're at about 5 weeks into it. Thursday, while you and I are talking today, it's a Thursday. This afternoon is the weekly next stage. It's all about fermentation. The first few of them were about all these different types of bacteria, wild yeast, bread, and now we're getting into cheese and yogurts and other things. So people who are like fermentos,
Love it.
You should just look it up, and
All right.
and we can get them. And they're testing about 1,000 different sourdough starters from around the world to break out what the microbes are that are in there that differentiate starters from different parts of the world. But going back to your two starters, can you tell the difference in flavor when you're using one or the other? Is it noticeable? Is one more tangy, more sour, more complex, or do they tend to sort of disappear?
I mean, I'm always doing what I can to make sure that it's not sour, you know, and like to me that's feeding, you know, more times a day, like keeping it a little stiffer than wetter, you know, keeping it warmer and using it very young. So like right when it just starts to peak, using it. And if I compensate for the amount of whole wheat that's in the starter that's fed, like, so if I use the all-purpose flour starter, but I add, you know, 20 wheat into it, I don't see a huge difference between if I were just to do the whole wheat starter with other flour, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
I think, yeah, there's definitely a subtle difference. And I think that's really interesting to me, but performance wise, I think it's pretty, you know,
Pretty comparable.
I try to do what I can to make them match up, you know?
Okay. Well, Anthony, we really appreciate you being with us and giving us this extra segment today, talking a little bit more about natural leavening. There's, again, making us jealous over here with you still getting a cheese pull on that, or is it starting to harden up from being out of the oven? We'll see. We'll see.
No, it's
Yeah.
cold now.
Pretty
Dude,
cold.
I mean, come on, look at that. That is like Pizza Hut.
That's
It's like, it's
caramelization.
exactly Pizza Hut, but
Pizza
all
Hut,
with
but
the
better,
goodness
right?
of
Pizza
that,
Hut, but better.
of like
That
recreate
could
Pizza
be the
Hut.
name of your book too.
Yeah.
Pizza Hut, but better. Well, Anthony Falco,
Yeah.
international pizza consultant, thank you for being with us today on Pizza Talk. We're going to get you back. We're going to talk more about maybe get deeper and deeper into the fermentation side of things. Maybe get you to sit down with some of our pizza yodis that we get together from time to time, a panel of experts, and a number of you now who are moving into the natural fermentation more regularly, like Dan Richer and others. We'd love to have you all on together, and maybe even invite our followers to send some questions in for you, so we could do some myth busting and also clarification of some of the.
Yeah, I'd love to do that. Tell some road stories.
Yeah.
You know, while I'm still here in Brooklyn, before I go back out on the road, which.
Yeah, well, who knows? Well, hopefully you get back out there soon. But and we want to hear about some more of your exploits from being out there on the road. So thank you again for joining us, and thank you all for watching and for bearing with all of the technical glitches that are out there in Zoom world. But we'll be back. We'll be back again with more visits and conversations with some of the top. I would call them the superstars of the pizza world, and also some artisans. We're going to have tomato growers. We have cheese makers. We're going to cover the whole gamut over the next few months on Pizza Talk. Anthony, again, thanks for being with us, and we'll see you soon.